Have you met you? I have, and I think you're amazing. Spoken to me by a friend. As I type this, I'm sitting in my church's sanctuary listening to my 9-year-old rehearse with the children's choir. Their sweet, melodic voices remind me of the innocence of childhood. I've even been known to shed a tear or two when they sing during worship service, especially when my baby has a solo. I'm a sap, I know. I don't know about you, but when I take an honest inventory of my childhood, I can remember a pure innocence and virtuousness about myself. Upon reflection, I can remember being my full and truest self. That is, until someone told me that who I was not good. Unfortunately, I believed them and hence lost touch with myself somewhere along the way. Today, I want to wrap up our conversation regarding change. If you haven't read or listened to the previous post, please see post 66 through 70. I think they'll be a blessing to you. I can feel change in the air. While I know that change is not always easy or comfortable, I also know that I must embrace it. For this world is a world of movement, and time waits for no one. In fact, the only thing constant about life is that we can always count on change. So I choose to embrace the beauty and excitement of change, knowing that the pleasure of what I'm gaining will far outweigh the pain of what might be lost. When weathering the winds of change, however, I'm reminded that the most formidable ally I have is me. I believe we are co creators of life, and that in the final analysis, this universe is a friendly universe. Quote attributed to Albert Einstein. In other words, God has done God's part, and now we must do ours, which in large part includes excavating the depths of our soul, creating new meaning out of our lived experiences, and releasing the passion, purpose, and power that lies within. I'm the first to admit that this can be more easily said than done, meaning, while I am fully persuaded that there are unfathomable depths of wisdom within my own soul, I am also well aware that I have made some grave mistakes along life's journey. These mistakes have no doubt been due to my not being in touch with and thereby following the wisdom within. Nevertheless, they have left me estranged from my best friend and ally, me. So, as I weather the winds of change, maneuver the maze of life, and seek to rise victorious through the warfare life's transitions can seemingly be, is that enough metaphors for you? I must learn to trust myself again. This can be a scary notion because I haven't always been true to myself, which has led to self destructive behavior and poor decisions, all at attempts to find validation and acceptance by others. However, I must get back to me. I must find my center and remain true to my life's journey and soul's calling. For example, as I sit here in the sanctuary of my church, if I allowed myself to be, I could be anxiety filled and engulfed in sadness. Let me explain. I grew up watching The Cosby Show and consequently created a mental image of what family was and is supposed to be. My church, one of my churches, I happen to be bi congregational, which is another story, happens to be a congregation that is known for having more than its fair share of affluent black families. Or, in other words, the kind of family that I have always envisioned for myself. However, this was not meant to be for me. This was not meant to be my life. I tried to create it for myself, and in fact, I did so pretty successfully. But there was one little problem. I'm gay. And contrary to popular opinion among many circles, it wasn't my choice. I was born this way. Therefore, the mom, dad, kids model was not meant to be my life, and I have to be okay with that. In order to have peace with myself and the world around me, I have to be at peace with it. Trying to create the perfect family, I was crazed with feelings of inadequacy and driven by deep insecurity, and it literally almost derailed my life. I could write a book, believe me. By being out of touch with my truest self, I became estranged from myself and driven by the most fearful parts of my ego, which led to a life in turmoil. So, as I now strive to live out of my soul, be led by love and not fear, and best discern my life's path, I am occasionally hesitant to use my greatest resource, me, because quite frankly, I haven't always been a good friend to myself. Nonetheless, if I'm to be spiritually attuned to the best life that I can live, I must be able to trust me again. I'm changing. We are changing. We are shedding the old and embracing the new. We are walking in new territory and experiencing new people, places, and things. I am meant to live a great life. However, it's not necessarily a life that I have envisioned for myself based on some abstract idea of what it's supposed to be. Rather, there is a life purposed for me, and I must be intimately acquainted with it. I must disabuse myself of the idea that any other life can be better than the one that is destined for me, and thereby forgive myself for neglecting it. For this is not the end of my story. My best days are not behind me, they are ahead of me. I am changing, but to do so well, I must trust myself again. For if I don't, I'll lose my best friend, my strongest ally, and I'll miss all of the best big things coming. Note, if you're new to the site, it might be helpful to read the first introductory post. Also, feel free to post your questions or comments here, and you can always reach out to me on Twitter at Ray C. Jordan using the hashtag BigThingsComing. Copyright 2014 Ray Jordan. And if you have a moment, please take a moment to listen to the music below, none other than Miss Jennifer Hudson. And as always, thank you for reading and listening.